executives say they're ready for a mobile liberalization. Find out more in the Bahamas tonight.
National ID cards could soon be a reality.
And Mariners face off with Caribs on the court. The Bahamas tonight. The National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Telecommunications in the country could soon change, and regulators say they're ready. Good evening, everyone. I'm Keisha Adderley.
And I'm Andrew Knowles. Thanks for joining us. The government's announcement on its deal with cable and wireless could change the landscape of telecommunications in the country. And as Janaea Noel Ferguson tells us, IRCA executives say they are prepared either way for the liberalization of the market.
The Bahamas Telecommunication Company's exclusivity on wireless services expires April 7th, but an IRCA executive warns consumers not to expect an immediate switch in service providers since the government has several options in selecting new wireless entities.
You can conduct a competitive process where you invite everyone in who's interested, put out a major announcement, everyone who's interested applies at the same time. They all have the same criteria that they have to meet. And you then can assess who is the best player. What is also often done, and no decision has been made on this in this context of the Bahamas, what is often done as well is that you have an auction which raises revenues for the government from the new players coming into the market. So they would bid for the spectrum that they have to use to provide service.
Now, whatever decision the government makes in regards to BTC, IRCA's Director of Policy and Regulation, Stephen Barreau, says the organization is ready for competition, but he says there are several things that must come into play first.
A new network has to build new towers, so you want to minimize those as much as possible. So that's one of the things we are ensuring that we put in place in good time before we have a new provider come on the ground and start building towers. Secondly, the licensing review is not a huge project, it's not a major thing for us, but we will be looking, it's a good opportunity for us in the issuing of a new mobile license when we get around to doing that, to look at our overall licensing framework and just ensure that it's still fit for purpose.
Although he did not identify which providers are interested in entering the sector, the IRCA executive revealed that a significant number of them are waiting on the April 7th deadline. IRCA's role, he says, is ensuring that the playing field is leveled.
People switch when they're ready to switch, and if they don't switch, it's because the quality of service that BTC is providing is better. So, that's as it should be. Mobile is an easy sector to introduce competition because of how flexible mobile phones are.
Now, mobile liberalization is IRCA's main focus this year. The goal is to ensure that there are no delays in transitioning from monopoly to competition. Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Labor Minister Shane Gibson says he takes no exception to the fingerprinting of foreign teachers and says it's a universal process which is used in more than one scenario.
Right now, every Bahamian is required to be fingerprinted when they go to the U.S. or if they get a Bahamian passport. And a Bahamian can be fingerprinted and a foreigner can't be fingerprinted. Something ain't wrong with that. Something got to be wrong with anybody who thinks there's something wrong with a foreigner being fingerprinted and nothing wrong with a Bahamian being fingerprinted every time they go for their passport. For you to get a new passport now, you must be fingerprinted. And if I have to do it, a person coming to my country who will be interacting with my kids shouldn't be fingerprinted. Something got to be wrong with that.
Well, ZNS News spoke with the Commissioner of Police, Ellison Greenslade, this morning to clarify whether the fingerprinting process is a requirement of the police force or education.
We impose no particular obligation on any organization or any particular person who is enjoying their freedoms within a democratic framework. That is the first thing I must say. If any citizen of this country or resident or employee approaches the police department and requests that their fingerprints be taken or that a vetting inquiry be done, that is in the case of an employer, to determine that a person presenting themselves is in fact who he or she say they are, then of course that is a standard procedure that has been in place in the Bahamas since time immemorial, and it predates any Burwell matter.
Immigration Minister Fred Mitchell says he would like to see a national ID card that would make identifying those who are legal a lot easier and more convenient for the card holder. Mr. Mitchell says technology exists for this to happen, and it could eliminate the need for a number of separate cards. He notes that your passport information would be on the card. There would also be no need for driver's license, social services and NIB numbers, and all interfaces with government would also be captured.
Use a portable handheld if somebody's checking at either at the border or on the streets, and would be able to find in one stroke or one swipe whether or not you're a Bahamian citizen and whether you're a resident in the country. And this becomes important because there's a demand from the public about security and to know who is in the Bahamas. I'm always cognizant of the civil liberties implications of these things because it's an intrusion on your right to move around with someone asking you for an identity card. And I said that perhaps one of the ways around this issue is that the card might not be mandatory.
Mitchell says immigration checks will continue, and he says from all indications they're proving quite successful.
This past Monday morning, the Department of Immigration was swamped with people. I mean, people just all over the steps, outside the doors, through the gates, so on and so forth. And oh, I'm sure that's what the reason is. I mean, it was like a madhouse. There's so many people.
People seeking proper
Yes, getting their proper documentation, and that's the only point. This is about the people who are supposed to be in the Bahamas should be documented to be in the Bahamas and not undocumented. And there's a way to get documents. And if you don't have the documents, then that means you don't have the right to be here.
President of the Bahamas Hotel and Catering and Allied Workers Union, Nicole Martin, says more workers at the Nassau Beach Resort have been fired. She told LaDawn Davis exclusively that even though restructuring exercises in the hotel industry happen every day, she is concerned about the removal of Bahamians holding key positions.
Effective January 18th, the Director of Engineering, Human Resources, Purchasing, and an executive chef were no longer employees at the Nassau Beach Resort. The separation of the four comes after two top managers were let go last week. President of the Bahamas Hotel, Catering, and Allied Workers Union, Nicole Martin, says she expressed her concerns to the Director of Labor and executives of Bahamar over the apparent removal of Bahamians holding top posts at the resort.
They are Bahamians. They held senior positions, and similar to the first two that were terminated, we're concerned that there seemed to be a move to move Bahamians out of executive positions at the Malia. And so as a Bahamian, I am concerned, and I am hopeful that we're not moving Bahamians to have those positions filled with foreign workers.
And while Martin could not reveal the cause of the separation, she did say that the removal is a bit unusual.
It seems a little suspicious that in a week, or a little over a week, we have 6 senior Bahamians who were terminated. The first 2, we were told they were terminated for cause. The other 4, we don't know. And as they rightfully put it, it's not my place because I don't represent those that level of employees.
Now, as it relates to issues affecting the more than 200 members of the Bahamas Hotel, Catering, and Allied Workers Union, Martin says several kinks were ironed out during a special closed-in meeting with management just last week.
All of the matters that we brought to the table were addressed. We were satisfied with the way that they were addressed. We were able to have quick resolution in some cases. There was a general, the general feel that they disregarded the union and they wanted to limit our access to the property. That was dealt with. So I'm happy that our issues are being dealt with.
Now, ZNS News caught up with the Senior Vice President of Bahamar, Robert Sands, who confirmed that 4 top managers were separated from the resort this week. LaDawn Davis, ZNS Network News.
A new executive chairman is expected to be selected tomorrow to head the Police Staff Association. Election coordinator Indira Adderley says ballots have been counted and the selection process for the branch and board members has been completed. Those selected include 14 constables, 10 corporals, 6 sergeants, and 3 inspectors, including former PSA executive chairman Inspector Dwight Smith. Adderley indicated that 7 constables, 5 corporals, 3 sergeants, and one inspector, that is, will be selected tomorrow to make up the new executive team, and that team will then select the executive chairman. Now, earlier reports suggested that former Chairman Inspector Smith could be re-elected as his name still appeared on yesterday's ballot. But Adderley will only confirm that the new executive chairman would be announced tomorrow, declining to comment on that possibility. Meantime, former Chairman Smith was back in court today, but this time for the court to fix a date for his indecent assault case. However, the court adjourned to February 17th. That's when the date will be set. Smith has pleaded not guilty to that charge. He's represented by attorney Devard Francis. A judge has ordered a retrial for accused murderer Nevin Curry.
Jurors returned a 7-5 not guilty verdict this afternoon, resulting in a hung jury. In order to convict Curry of murder, the verdict had to be unanimous. At the same time, in order to acquit an accused person, the verdict had to be a majority verdict. As a result, Senior Justice John Isaacs ordered a retrial. Curry is accused of killing Stanley McIntosh in Abaco back on February 26 of 2012. Meantime, Curry remains behind bars at Her Majesty's prisons. He returns to court on January 30th for a date to be set for his retrial. Attorney Muriel Ducille defended him.
In our first look at weather, we still have that stall-out frontal boundary over the southeast Bahamas, producing some cloudiness and 1 or 2 showers, but there's a second frontal system making its way into the extreme northwest Bahamas that will push through during the late night and early morning hours. But outside of our studios, we have few clouds, temperatures 73 degrees, a relative humidity 54%, winds out of the south-southwest at 8 knots, your barometric pressure 1,014.0 millibars, that's 29.94 inches, and it is rising. But stay tuned. Temperatures in Family Islands around the Family Islands are still to come.
Well, still ahead tonight, the government looks to close on the UBS incident.
Central Bank. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Shell Helix Ultra. Performance you can see.